Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Boss Economics World, the only show that takes the dismal science of economics and turns it into a full-blown circus of financial absurdity. I'm your host, the one, the only, Professor Profit Pants, here to break down the latest economic shenanigans with a side of satire and a sprinkle of shade. Today, we're diving headfirst into a story so juicy, so dripping with economic irony, it could only come from the hallowed halls of the Federal Reserve. Buckle up, folks, because we're about to unpack a tale of banks, bureaucracy, and, wait for it, third-party tax ID shenanigans. Oh yeah, it's gonna get wild. So, here's the deal, my financially curious friends. The Federal Reserve, in all its infinite wisdom, has decided to bless banks with, what they're calling, flexibility. Flexibility, huh? Sounds like the kind of word your yoga instructor uses right before you pull a hamstring. But in this case, it's all about how banks collect your tax identification number. You know, that little piece of info that proves you're a real, tax-paying human and not just a robot trying to open a savings account to fund its robot uprising. Back in 2003, the Fed said, hey, banks, you gotta get this info directly from the customer before you open an account. Fair enough, right? But now, in the year of our Lord 2025, they're saying, nah, scratch that. You can just grab it from a third party instead. Oh, ho, the plot thickens. Now, before you start thinking this is just some boring regulatory tweak, let me stop you right there. This, my friends, is a goldmine of economic absurdity, a Pandora's box of financial folly, and a masterclass in unintended consequences. So, grab your calculators, your coffee, and maybe a stiff drink, because we're about to dissect this beast from point to surface, layer by layer, like a financial onion that's gonna make you cry. Let's go. Alright, let's start with the basics, because I know some of you out there are thinking, Professor Profit Pants, why should I care about how banks get my tax ID? Well, buckle up, Buttercup, because this is about identity verification, the backbone of the financial system. See, back in 2003, the Fed rolled out these rules under the USA Patriot Act. Yes, that's the one with the acronym so patriotic it practically salutes itself. The goal? To stop money laundering, terrorist financing, and other shady shenanigans by making sure banks know exactly who they're dealing with. You want to open an account? Cough up your name, address, date of birth, and that precious tax ID number, pal. No ID, no account, no dice. This is all part of what we in the biz call KYC, Know Your Customer. It's the financial world's version of, show me your papers, but with more paperwork and fewer dramatic accents. And for 2 decades, banks have been dutifully collecting this info straight from you, the customer. But now, the Fed's like, you know what? Times have changed. Financial services are evolving. Let's let banks outsource this to third parties. Sounds innocent enough, right? Wrong. This is where the economic clown car starts careening off the cliff, and we're all along for the ride. Now, let's dig a little deeper, shall we? The Fed says this move is all about giving banks flexibility while still ensuring risk-based procedures for verifying identities. Flexibility, huh? Sounds like the kind of thing a politician says when they're about to deregulate something into oblivion. But here's the kicker, folks, this isn't just about making life easier for banks. Oh no. This is about cost-cutting, efficiency, and, drumroll, please, profit maximization. Because let's be real, if there's one thing banks love more than charging you overdraft fees, it's finding ways to do less work for more money. Here's the deal. Collecting customer info directly is expensive. You've got to train staff, build secure systems, deal with cranky customers who can't find their social security card, ugh, the horror. But third parties? Oh, they're the gig economy of financial data. Companies like Experian, Equifax, and a whole host of fintech startups are out there hoovering up your personal info faster than you can say, data breach. And now, banks can just pay these guys to do the dirty work. According to a 2024 report from McKinsey, banks globally spent over $180 billion on compliance and risk management last year, with KYC processes eating up a huge chunk of that. So, naturally, outsourcing this to third parties is a no-brainer for their bottom line. But here's the million-dollar question, folks, what's the cost to you, the customer? Yes, privacy, the word that makes every economist, banker, and tech bro break out in a cold sweat. See, when banks collect your tax ID directly, at least you know where your data is going. It's staying in-house, locked up tighter than Fort Knox, or at least, we hope so. But the second you let third parties into the mix, it's like handing your personal info to a room full of strangers and hoping they don't sell it on the dark web. And let's not kid ourselves, folks, data breaches are as common as avocado toast at a millennial brunch. Here's some fresh data to chew on. According to the 2025 Verizon Data Breach Investigations Report, the financial sector saw a 25% increase in data breaches last year, with over 1,500 incidents reported globally. And guess what? Third-party vendors were involved in nearly 40% of those breaches. Oh, and let's not forget the granddaddy of all data disasters, the 2017 Equifax breach, where the personal info of 147 million people was exposed. That's right, folks, the very companies banks might now rely on to grab your tax ID have a track record of fumbling the ball harder than a quarterback in a monsoon. So, tell me, Fed, how exactly does this flexibility ensure risk-based procedures? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like a recipe for chaos. But wait, there's more. Let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture, because this isn't just about tax IDs or data breaches. Oh no, this is about regulatory capture, the fancy term for when the foxes start guarding the henhouse. See, the Fed didn't make this decision in a vacuum. They coordinated with the FDIC, the OCC, the NCUA, and the Treasury's FinCEN. That's a whole alphabet soup of regulators, all nodding in unison like a bunch of bobbleheads on a dashboard. And who do you think was whispering in their ears? That's right, the banks. The very institutions that stand to profit from this flexibility are the ones pushing for it. Here's the tea, folks. According to the Center for Responsive Politics, the financial sector spent over $2 billion on lobbying in the U.S. in 2024 alone, with banks like J.P. Morgan Chase, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo leading the charge. And what do they want? Less regulation, more flexibility, and a free pass to outsource their responsibilities. This Fed move is a textbook example of regulatory capture, when the rules are bent to favor the industry at the expense of the public. And the best part? The Fed says this flexibility is optional, so banks can just cherry-pick when they want to use third parties and when they don't. Translation, all the benefits, none of the accountability. Bravo, Fed, bravo. Now, let's bring it back to you, the little guy, the average Joe or Jane just trying to open a bank account without having your identity stolen or your data sold to the highest bidder. What does this mean for you? Well, for starters, it means your personal info is about to get passed around more than a hot potato at a family reunion. And if something goes wrong, if there's a breach, if your identity gets stolen, good luck figuring out who's to blame. Is it the bank? The third party? The Fed? Spoiler alert, nobody's gonna take responsibility, and you'll be left holding the bag. And here's the kicker, folks, this isn't just about you. This is about the broader economy. See, when identity theft and fraud go up, it's not just individuals who suffer. Businesses lose money, banks tighten lending, and the whole financial system gets gummed up. According to a 2025 report from Javelin Strategy and Research, identity fraud cost U.S. consumers and businesses $56 billion last year, with a 30% increase in synthetic identity fraud, where criminals use fake identities to open accounts. And guess what makes that kind of fraud easier? You guessed it, lax KYC procedures and third-party data mishandling. So, while the Fed's busy patting itself on the back for modernizing the system, the rest of us are left wondering when the next financial crisis is gonna hit. So, what's the takeaway, my financially frazzled friends? This Fed move is a masterclass in economic absurdity, a perfect storm of cost-cutting, deregulation, and unintended consequences, all wrapped up in a shiny bow of flexibility. But fear not, because Professor Profit Pants has a solution. Step 1, tighten data security standards for third parties, with mandatory audits and hefty fines for breaches. Step 2, make banks, not consumers, liable for any fraud or identity theft that results from outsourcing KYC. And Step 3, stop letting the financial industry write the rules. We need regulators who work for the public, not for the bank's bottom line. And there you have it, folks, another day, another economic dumpster fire, courtesy of Boss Economics World. If you liked this video, smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell, because we've got more financial folly coming your way. Until next time, keep your wallets close and your tax IDs closer. This is Professor Profit Pants, signing off.